Disney parks, Disneyland, Disney World have often been known for their hospitality, their kindness towards guests. I guess you could say it's sort of the magic behind what they do. But now families with disabilities have major complaints, and many say they're being treated extremely unkindly. Today we'll dive into whether or not this has merit and whether Disney is in the wrong. Hello folks, welcome back to the Pro Channel. We are happy to have you here where everyone is welcome. Welcome one and all. And welcome to you, Jonas J. Campbell. How are you?
I'm very good to be here and glad for all of our visitors here today. So glad that you could make it.
That's right. An attitude of gratitude for each and every one of you. And who knows, we might even be more thankful if you do us the very kind favor of clicking the like button. And now for your news, because, well, it's the job around here. Here's what we've got out of Business Insider. This by Lauren Edmonds. A disabled woman planned a once-in-a-lifetime trip to Disney World. Then the park changed its disability policy. Now, Jonas, we had known about this policy change coming. We were not able to talk about it because it would have burned a source. We've also in the past covered some of these issues that the Walt Disney World Resort and Disneyland have with disability access. And so we'll continue to do that because we think this is important. One of the most important comments we've ever received on a video came last time we did this topic, and we had someone reach out who was talking about their situation at the Disney parks and put in a great effort. We can't respond to every comment we receive, but folks, I just want you to know, when you tell us about your experiences, we're reading them. We truly are. It says Disney has revised its Disability Access Service Program for theme park guests. That's DAS. You'll hear that. We call it DAS sometimes. The updated policy came as some guests attempted to exploit the service. But a coalition of people with disabilities says the new policy does more harm than good. It also needs to be said that partly what Disney has done, it seems, is to offload the responsibility of this to a third party. Here's the article. Savannah spent 9 weeks and thousands of dollars planning her family's trip to Walt Disney World. For me and my husband, this is a once-in-a-lifetime trip, Savannah 36 told Business Insider. It wasn't a simple process for the Indiana-based couple who planned to travel with Savannah's 72-year-old mother. They had to ensure that Savannah, a lifelong Disney fan, could navigate the sprawling theme parks as someone with a physical disability. She says, I've had physical issues for the last 10 years that have prevented me from doing a lot of things. Doctors discovered that Savannah, who asked that her last name not be published for health privacy reasons, if Pro can talk, had an os trigonum, which is an extra bone found in the back of the ankle around 2013. Savannah had accidentally broken that particular bone while running one day and didn't receive medical treatment for 8 months. The incident has continued to cause her pain. And folks, you can read more about this in the article. However, what they found out was that the Disney's Disability Access Service Program no longer was available to folks with many physical ailments. Now, Jonas, who is the DAS program for?
It appears that the DAS program is for people with sensory issues more than it is people with actual physical disabilities.
Right, and so that seems to be unfair for those who can't stand in line or sit in line, perhaps, due to physical ailments because they need to keep moving or because being cramped up in that queue is a real problem.
Right, and also some of the queues at Walt Disney World involve going up and down inclines and on occasion stairs. This is something that they have not always been fantastic about, and I think the ADA helped with that. But of course, a lot of things were grandfathered in when it came to the Americans with Disabilities Act. Right now, I'm not sure that the situation at Disney is actually conducive to helping people that are physically disabled.
Right, and I'm not sure how that's legal. I'm not suggesting that it's illegal. I'm not suggesting that Disney should, receive any action against them. I don't know, but it seems odd to me. This one boggles the mind a bit, and it makes me think Disney offloading this to a third party might have been savvy on their part if they were going to do this. This is not what I would have recommended. But take a look at what this coalition that's forming says. It says, in a formal letter addressed to Disney's top brass, including CEO Bob Iger, the coalition, those who are against these changes, pointed to cancer patients, narcoleptics, veterans with PTSD, individuals with Parkinson's disease, and other groups as people now excluded from the disability access services.
Okay,
Punishing
okay,
disabled.
okay.
Go
I
ahead,
have
go ahead,
something
Jonas.
to say about that.
Please.
I've been to the park with people who have cancer, and not everyone who has cancer has any physical. Not everyone who has cancer has a physical disability. Some people have cancer and they're in treatment for it. Also, there are people who temporarily have it for a short period of time. So, if we were to include all people who are undergoing cancer treatment of any kind, I don't think that would. I think that would be more an opportunity for DAS abuse. If we talk about the actual physical disability that comes from cancer treatments, maybe. But this to me already sounds like they're pushing in things that are rife for abuse.
Then perhaps, Jonas, correct me if I'm wrong here, perhaps the correct action is somewhere in between the two positions that exist, right?
Mhm.
So maybe it's not that every person who is narcoleptic should receive the ability to skip the line. Perhaps it's also not the case that every person with a physical disability should be disallowed from using this. Perhaps there's a middle ground that we could find that's a sensible center yet again, and I would recommend that we start looking for that. So, those who are truly disadvantaged in a way that's unfair and unkind, waiting in a line beyond that of a normal person with normal day to day issues, they need to be cared for, I think, if we're going to be calling Disney a theme park that cares about its guests and its families. I don't know that this system now of only making this be essentially about things like autism. I don't know that that's a wise way to handle this at all. Even if the old system was being abused, it doesn't mean that you throw out that old system with a new system that sucks. Fair?
No, I totally agree with you. Now, come to think of it, I've also been to the parks with people who have PTSD, and yeah, I don't think just making the blanket statement that if you check this box, you automatically get DAS. That's not a good way to handle it. And of course, we have not discussed so far yet in this video Lightning Lane, which has exacerbated the situation with
Well,
DAS here.
let's talk about Lightning Lane then, Jonas, because one of the things that comes up quite often is how crowded the parks appear when in reality they're probably not all that crowded. And that also makes for a challenge for those trying to navigate the parks with physical disabilities. A more crowded park is much harder to navigate with a wheelchair, for example. But all of that said, we won't go into how Disney has made uncrowded parks seem very crowded. But it does tie into what you're speaking about in terms of Lightning Lane and Standby. And Lightning Lane and Standby now have created a situation where the standby line is less conducive for those who have physical disabilities because, well, it doesn't move. It truly is a standby line. Like you are just standing with very little forward progress. Jonas, tell us why that might be a negative for those who have mobility issues.
Well, for lack of a better way of putting it, when they premiered Genie Plus and Lightning Lane, they essentially took what would have been the DAS system and said, "Well, if you pay this much per month, you essentially get access to that system, and then you could be added into that." Is that as for all intents and purposes, doesn't it function the exact same way as Lightning Lane?
Well, Lightning Lane, the issue here now is with Lightning Lane, the way that they have this functioning is the standby line just doesn't move. Lightning Lane gains such a preference. So think about it this way, Jonas. Back when we had Fast Pass and Fast Pass was free and it was given and guaranteed to every guest, then you could plan out very easily if you're Disney. Every guest gets this amount of Fast Pass, and every guest uses it this much based on our research. And therefore, here's how many people we're going to admit with FastPass. Here's how many people we're going to admit by standby line, and here's how we'll keep the lines moving. The problem is that when folks have paid for Lightning Lane, and sometimes they paid a lot, what happens is they gain first priority, period, and then the standby line doesn't move because it's just Lightning Lane people going through nonstop.
Right, and of course, it becomes it's priced low enough that I'm not saying it's especially when you start talking about the entire group, it's priced low enough that it's tempting for most users to get it. And so they're hitting capacity on a lot of days. Even Disney's Animal Kingdom has hit capacity on Lightning Lane before. And so it's a situation where it's priced so low that you feel dumb for not getting it, but it's so popular that you also feel dumb for getting it.
And it's priced high enough that you have a lot of people using it. Disney's making a lot of money, and that's what they're counting on because although they have not yet raised ticket prices, they will. Um, the actual cost of being in the parks and getting to enjoy the attractions is quite high. But
Oh
let's
no,
finish with this, Jonas.
they have raised prices. I'll just throw
Well,
that in there. Even though
right,
Bob
not the
Iger
ticket
said,
prices.
even though Bob Iger has come in and said the ticket prices were too high in his little campaign, Hearts and Minds campaign when he came back, everything that Bob Chapek was going to do that made everybody cry out for Bob Iger to come back, Bob Iger did that, and then some.
Yeah, Bob did that. That's going to be the new phrase. Well, that doesn't really encapsulate which Bob, though, does it? Let's finish with this, though. This is the quote from Savannah as we wrap this up. And we're obviously assuming and hoping that Savannah is being forthright and honest and that everything is on the up and up here. But Savannah says, I've invested all of this money that you're not going to give me back if I can't physically go. What does that look like for me? It did not feel like the Disney that I had heard so many good things about. And so seems like Savannah was trying to get her money back and say, listen, you changed this. I was depending on this. And now that it's gone, I can't come and have a good time because I can't wait in line due to my disability. And so for Disney, that's not a good look at all. Not sure how far this will go. But Jonas, your final thoughts on DAS, the changes, and whether or not this will need to be remodified by Disney down the road.
I definitely think they need to remodify it. I think we'll have a few years before they fix it because I don't think this current system is actually going to help them. I think pushing it to a third party, even though that third party has some trouble, as we've seen from Universal Studios using the system that was rumored to be used by Disney here. I think that took a lot of liability out of Disney's hands. And instead, Disney would rather have these elevated cast members and now this third party service. They're going to be the arbiters of who gets disability access and who does not. There will always be people who abuse a system, but we need to keep those numbers low. Of course, Genie Plus being in here has made this hotter than ever because DAS usage has tripled, I think they've said, since Lightning Lane came into being. And of course, that we don't think that the physical issues have grown at a rate that matches just how much disability access has needed to grow at the park. So there's something going on here. Disney's trying to solve it for monetary reasons and, of course, to not end up with a disability lawsuit sometime down the road. I think this is a big mess and it's a half measure. So I don't think this fixes the problem. I think this kicks the can a little bit, but at some point in the near future, a lawsuit is going to come up and Disney will consider changing it again. What this petition to me does not address is people who are abusing the DAS system. And I think that it opens the door for greater DAS abuse if they were to agree to all of the things that this petition is pushing forward.
And as we say here, folks, DAS, no good. It's a bad joke. I know, it's a bad joke. All right, folks, it is time now for your participation. If you would be so kind, please click that like button, share, subscribe, click it, stick it to the algorithms, it's the notification bell. Drop a comment down below and let us know your thoughts. And if you've been to Disney and if you've used these sorts of services in the past, let us know how this impacts you and your family. We read them, can't respond to every single one of them, but trust us, we care. We truly do. We wouldn't keep staying on this topic if not for that, because this is not necessarily the firebrand of excitement on YouTube, but we think it's really, really important because we care about all of you out there. Folks, wherever you are and whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing. And you know what? Keep having fun.